In this video, we share what you can do as a homeowner if your furnace is on and running but blowing cold air. So if you're a homeowner and you have an HVAC issue, you want to save some money, please subscribe and keep watching. Hey, Dad.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. So people are starting to call with
Yeah,
some issues with their furnace.
right.
And one of the most common ones that we get is, why would my furnace be on and running, but it's blowing cold air? Is
Mm.
there anything that I can do myself, or any kind of tips that you might have for customers that might, save them a service call, or, and then also maybe when to know when it might be a serious problem? What
Yeah.
do I do when my furnace is on and seems to be working, but it's just blowing cold air?
The first question I would have is that all it's doing? Is it just blowing cold air indefinitely and it's not heating my home? The house is getting cold.
Hmm.
Or, well, actually, it's heating my home. It blows warm air from time to time. The temperature seems to be okay, but it seems to also be blowing cold air all the time, so that's kind of two different things.
So the first question for the customer would be, is the temperature, does your house feel cold?
Right. Is it
Okay.
it's blowing cool air, but is it maintaining the temperature that I want? And let's say that it's not. No, that in this example, no, it's just doing nothing but blowing cold air, and my house is getting cold. I'm going to assume that we've got a furnace that's been manufactured in the last 15 years, 10, 15 years. So if it's not heating the home, all it's doing is blowing cold air. On many furnaces, that's kind of the default that it goes to when it senses a problem. Sometimes, especially if it has a motor problem, but we don't have a motor problem because it is blowing cold
Hmm.
air. So it's blowing cold air, but many times if it locks itself out, it senses a problem with the pilot, or it's tried ignition multiple times, it will just turn itself off and run the blower. And that's kind of a sign to the homeowner that, hey, you need to check me out. So let's say that's what's happening. The first thing I would tell you to do is go downstairs. Let's do a hard reset of the furnace. Let's turn all the power off to the furnace. Let it sit for 15, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and let's turn it back on and see what happens, because many times it will reset itself and try and go through its stages of ignition. As far as turning on the inducer fan is the first thing you'll hear. You'll either see or hear it light the pilot, or have a hot surface ignition light the burner, and then it'll time for a period, and then the fan will come on. That's kind of its normal sequence. So let's turn the power off to the furnace. Let's do a hard reset and just see what it does. And many times it will correct itself. Sometimes let's say it was a real cold morning, and on its first trial, it didn't light the burner properly, maybe because of gas pressure or something that was going on 3 hours ago when demand
Hmm.
was much different than what it is right now. So many times, some of those things will correct themselves. Gas pressure will be more stable or something like that. And so simply turn it off and let's turn it back on and see if it goes through the process. If it just brings on the blower, blowing cold air again, okay, it's time to call a professional. There's something has failed. It's locking itself out. It's not wanting to try again.
How do you turn off the furnace?
Yeah, good question. Well, you're going to go downstairs. In this area, there's always a service switch. There's supposed to be a service switch. It will look like a light switch many times on the side of the furnace cabinet, a regular little toggle switch. Sometimes there's a pigtail coming out of the furnace, which is just an electrical, looks like a plug-in type, like you're plugging in a lamp or something. You'll unplug it and plug it back in, or you'll turn
Hmm.
it off and then turn it back on again. So yeah, that's a good
Okay.
question. So that was the first instance. Now let's go the other way and say, well, okay, the furnace is blowing cold air, but it's actually heating the home okay. There are times that I'll feel that the air is warm, but it seems like the blower is running all the time. It's
Hmm.
running all the time, and so in the times that it's not heating, it kind of feels cool, like it's circulating air. The first thing you're going to want to do is go to the thermostat. There's a blower setting on the thermostat, and maybe it got mistakenly punched, but you'll see your controls. You'll have a heat cool off setting That's selecting what mode you're going to have your comfort system in. There's also a blower switch there, so it will be labeled something like automatic and on, or continuous and on. And what that means is the on means it's going to turn the blower on and it's going to stay on. So you can use it in either the heating or cooling mode. That blower is going to run all the time, but still cycle the equipment to either heat and cool the home. And so it's a function of being able to circulate air. It's very possible somebody has mistakenly turned that switch to the on position and it's running all the time. The auto position means the blower is going to automatically come on. It's going to be in auto mode, so it knows when to stage itself on in the heating season. It knows when to stage itself on in the cooling season. It's going to do it automatically. First of all, check. You may have a switch flipped on your thermostat, and it's causing it to do that. If that's not the case, I'm in the auto mode, and yet it's still running all the time. Something is stuck. It's probably a circuit board. A real good test of this is to go downstairs, and if it's just running the blower all the time, sometimes you can give the furnace a good jolt. Open hands and just give it a good hard vibration. Many times you can unstick a micro switch,
like a vending machine.
Much like a vending machine, yes. But just give it a jolt, give it a little shock. You shouldn't be, you're not hard enough to dent anything or knock something off, but just give it a good vibration. Sometimes that will unstick it. Now, if it's stuck once, it'll probably stick again, but just know that. Sometimes you can save yourself. Sometimes just a one-time freak deal, it stuck on, and you can unstick it that way. And going through the hard reset, like how we did before, is never a bad thing. It's still heating and cooling, but something is still malfunctioning. Sometimes a hard reset will turn it off and turn it back on again, and away it goes.